Oh, hey, I'm glad you're here. I just finished proofing this episode, and I think you'll find Haley absolutely kills it on this one. Thank you, Haley, for all you do with the producing and the editing of everything. I, however, wanted to give you a peek at how the podcast is baked. You see, I didn't do a great job with the intro. I had just been on my phone, inundated with movie talk, YouTube, Instagrammers, posting current content on movies, doing current movie trends, and I did my episode, hoping to inspire people to do their own searches to find movies, but I was also pretty negative about the content creators. That's not my intention. It doesn't bring me joy to yuck somebody's yum, to even say that, which I should cut that out. But no, I'm leaving it in because, hey, I'm not perfect. But it can be a lot when you're online and you see all these things and they're not for you, but I should be able to deal with that. So I'm telling you now that that's what I'm doing. I cut that. I asked Haley actually to cut that. Thank you again, Haley, for everything you do. And the next part is just the encouragement part from the original intro. So in this episode, we champion an underseen goth gem. That's what this is all about, the gems. Growing up in a video store, you'd find the gems by walking the aisles, exploring the titles, picking up the boxes that you thought are interesting. Now, maybe you don't have a video store near you, but you do have a computer. So I want you to do something for me. I want you to pick a subgenre or genre in horror, pick an interesting title or cover, then pick an actor or director off of that or cinematographer, and go on your own hunt. I guarantee it won't be long before you find something that people haven't talked about because a boutique label put it on Blu-ray. You can find your own gems without without smashing that subscribe. See, this is what I'm saying. I wrote the original intro and it was just so unnecessarily negative. So forget that part. Do subscribe to this podcast, though. Wow. There's 3 sentences here that I'm also omitting. This is really crazy how, unfortunately, negative I was. Not my intent. My intent is to challenge you to find your own gems. It doesn't matter if it's obscure or well-known, as long as it's new to you. That's my October challenge to you. Find one movie and then let me know, either on DM, through on any social media, or you can call or text the number 503-395-8858. That's 503-395-8858. Let me know one movie that brought you joy this October. Speaking of October, this month we have not one, as I planned, but 2 special episodes celebrating horror movies, and they're both the next 2 episodes. One we've already recorded, and it is really wild. People are going to have, for sure, opinions on this, so keep an eye out for those 2 episodes. And that's it. Okay, let's get right into this. Thank you for putting up with this, with me being transparent and honest, and I hope you love this episode as much as I do, because the film is Moonchild. My co-host Sarah Marshall is back. Our guest is Carmelita, and you're listening to VH Us. Greetings and salutations. This is VHS, the podcast where each episode is about a film and the guest has the profession or experience portrayed in the film. However, this is another one of our dark-hearted series exploring goth themes in cinema. So it's not a job. Sorry, Mom, it's not a phase, it's in our veins. I'm your host, Dirk Marshall, and I'm joined by my co-host, Sarah Marshall. Welcome back.
Hey, buddy.
And you know this other lovely being from our Derek Jarman celebration, our Crow episode, Gypsy 83, and our number 1 listened to episode of all time, The Reflecting Skin. It's Carmelita Valdez McKoy. Welcome back.
Hi, friends. Thank you so much for having me back.
Absolutely. Well, when the topic of Moonchild came up, I was like, well, there's only one person we could have on to talk about Moonchild, the movie that's on everyone's lips. It's Moonchild from 1988. But before we get into that, how have we all been, Sarah? What's new?
Well, busiest time for hot sauce is right now,
Yep.
all the way through October. So I am running frantically from farmer's market to the kitchen to put up peppers. Right now, peaches are in season, so
Hmm.
we make a peach barbecue sauce with our farmer friends from Baird. So we're
Mm.
processing tons and tons of peaches so we can make them hot sauce in the winter when they don't have anything to sell.
Hmm.
So that's pretty fun. I like this time of year. I also our garden's going off, so we have that going on, and I just bought a new juicer. I'm excited to like juice things from the garden, so like I'm in that mode. I'm in like full on summer produce mode.
Yeah. It's a very fun time of year to be your partner because you have so many tools at your disposal between the
Mm-hmm.
commercial kitchen and the regular kitchen. You
Yeah.
have the freeze dryer, the dehydrator, of course, blenders the size of boat motors.
Mm-hmm.
It's always interesting when you're like, I just did this. And I'm like, whoa, with what? How? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
I also had a fun experience with my lifelong friend who decided he wanted to learn how to can, and I was like, just come over. We'll can he wanted to learn how to can tomatoes, and then he wanted to can a lot of tomatoes for the whole year. So we got 60 pounds of
Hmm.
tomatoes to can, which is a lot. And it's a lot to do as a first undertaking of canning, but we nailed it. We kicked so much tomato ass and we canned all those tomatoes. So it was pretty rad.
Yeah. And you peeled the skins, dehydrated them, and then powder them to make tomato powder.
I sure do. I just really tackle it all.
Panning boot camp.
I
Yes,
know.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
And
So it's fun. I dig it. It
And then on
makes me
top of
happy.
that, not just for your friends, but you do teach classes, and people can find that on Airbnb Experiences. Is that right?
Yeah, Airbnb experience. I have one class listed right now for September, and then I'll put one up for October, November, and then we take December off. So,
Rad.
yeah.
Looking
So
forward to
come
that.
can with me. It's so fun.
Yeah. Carmelita, it's been a while since we chatted. What's new with you?
What's new? Well, I mean, the thing that's not new, watching lots of movies,
Yes, perfect.
lots of podcasting, which is
Yeah.
always fun.
Mm-hmm.
I started a new job recently
Hmm.
and I commute by bus. And so I'm the one person, the one spooky person dressed all in black
Yeah.
on my bus
Yeah.
ride. And then in the office, I'm like the office specter, the
Mm-hmm.
dark lady, all in black
That's
in
what
the
we
sea
were.
of cubicles.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and it's summertime at time of our recording, and so my big black sun hats and
Mm-hmm.
trying to create shade wherever I go.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. It's funny because in Oregon, it's summer's not very long, and so when the sun comes out, there are people who run outside, and I think about this all the time when we go to a restaurant and people are like, "Can we eat outside?" And I'm like, "That's insanity! Like what?" But like people love it, and you see lists that are like top 10 patios of Portland, and I'm like, "What are people doing?" Because I'm the same year round. I'm like, "I'd like to be inside, please." I don't know what we're
Yes.
doing. But we'll get to one of the gifts that being inside year round really gave me. So, the film that brings us together is Moonchild from 1988. Not 89, not any other year. There are so many goddamn Moonchild
So
movies.
many Moonchilds. I
It's a
mean, come
lot.
on.
I don't get it. But what's everyone's history with Moonchild? Sarah, we'll start with you.
With this particular movie,
Yeah.
I had no history. I didn't know it existed.
Excellent.
And then you said we were going to watch it, and I was like, cool.
Perfect. Carmelita, Moonchildren.
I had no history with this either.
This is so interesting about
Isn't
Moonchild
that crazy?
because we'll get to why, but I mean, did you guys know the film Baraka?
No.
So there's a documentary style film that has no really conventional narrative called Baraka, and it came out in 92, and Dead Can Dance did the soundtrack for it. But it was like kind of in the world music time, and so it
Mm,
wasn't, I didn't even take note of them being a part of the soundtrack because we'll get to our entry points into this band, but it was the only other time I ever saw their name on something that was a soundtrack. But The reason we're talking about Moonchild is because I saw it back in the VHS days, but for obvious reasons, the copy was trash. I couldn't even really tell what was happening. It was very smushy. And I that
Carmelita, I don't know if you could hear our cat, but she came in and she wants to be part of the podcast.
ladies and gentlemen, our another guest, Kiki, the cat.
Mm-hmm.
I left the door open. I knew what she was going to do. I saw it back in the VHS days, and I didn't know that it had a Blu-ray release, so I picked it up and I put it in, and then I instantly thought, we have to do an episode on this. We have to talk Moonchild, and we will also be continuing our history of alternate soundtracks, so each of us will bring 4 songs to contribute to our alternate soundtrack for Moonchild, and we'll be doing that by taking little breaks as we discuss the plot of Moonchild.
Kiki has songs she wants on there too, Dirk. They're all about cats.
This is how the episode's going to go. At the time of this recording, it's on Blu-ray, but it's also streaming. Carmelita, where did you find Moonchild from 1988?
Tubi.
Tubi. So it's on Tubi, people. But I highly recommend supporting local video stores like Movie Madness right here in Portland,
Whoop, whoop.
Oregon. The synopsis is adopted by a treacherous semi-scientific cult where extraordinary mental powers are common. They use extraordinary twice. 12-year-old David begins an archetypal journey across 2 continents to find his destiny as child of the moon. That's almost more confusing, I think, than watching this movie. It's directed by Augusti Villaronga, and I'm not good with Spanish, so correct me on any pronunciation.
You did beautifully.
Okay, thank you.
But I got you on the Spanish pronunciation.
Cool. He directed In a Glass Cage, Belly of the Sea, Uncertain Glory. He also wrote this film. I love it when a director writes something and it's so uniquely this that you're like, this could have only come from you. And I don't know why, but here it is. Our cinematographer, this is a name, Carmelita, I always get tripped on. It's Juame.
That is
it
yeah, you don't see that
Juame?
one very. Juame,
Juame?
I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
My apologies. Juame Paracaula, who did Inconscientes, Color of the Clouds. And then our editor is Raul Roman, who did Moonchild, Uncertain Glory, King of Havana. So he worked with Augusti on a couple projects. It's starring Mirabel Martin as Victoria, who was in El Camino, Blood Splattered Bride, The House That Screamed. She did a lot of titles that were just in Spanish that I haven't seen these films. Are you familiar with this actress, Carmelita?
I've seen her in some things.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
and she's one of those, it's like, you're like, oh, her.
Mm-hmm. Yes, she has a really striking face.
Yes.
And then next we have one of the reasons we're having this conversation right now. It's Lisa Gerard, half of Dead Can Dance, in her only starring role.
This was it, the only one.
This is it.
Ah.
And what a role it is.
Mhm.
Seriously.
Why would you ever need to do anything else?
No, yeah. It's crazy. And also, as hinted at earlier, Dead Can Dance wrote the soundtrack for this movie. All the orchestrations, instrumental, even though numerous times in it I was like, oh, here comes Brendan Perry's going to be singing. Nope.
No singing. That's what I was kind of thinking we were, when you said, Dead Can Dance did the soundtrack, I was like, oh, cool. Like, I was thinking it was going to be Dead Can Dance songs. And so then it would start and I would be like, no, wait.
Yeah.
I'm excited and I want more.
Yes. So let's just pause the movie talk for a moment because I want to talk about how we each came into Dead Can Dance. Sarah, where was your entry point? Do you remember?
I don't really remember, but I have an awful lot of records. So I would guess probably just finding their records in music stores would be my my best guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Carmelita?
My recollection is I got into Cocteau Twins first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, oh, well, if you like that, you'll like this.
Yeah.
But I do recall when I was first exploring Dead Can Dance, there was that divide between their early work and then the world music direction
Yes.
that they went into. And so it was kind of like, whoa, what's happening here? But I love Dead Can Dance.
Yeah.
I love the whole vibe, even though the world music aspects that they really lean into later on, it's not quite my thing.
Mm-hmm.
That early stuff, I love it, love it, love it.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, for me, it was like I was an industrial guy before getting into the goth stuff. So I came across like early Cocteau Twins because of like Joy Division, and I was like, okay, I love this sound. And then somebody put on Dead Can Dance Into the Labyrinth, and they're like, well, then you'll love this. And I was like, I don't love this. Like,
I thought that you knew it all. Well, you've seen it 10 times before.
what are you did you buy this at Natural Wonders in the mall? Like, what? Are you going to bust out a rain stick next? Like, what is happening here?
It's so not your vibe.
It was not my vibe, and it took a lot of clove cigarettes and laying on people's floors with candles lit before I was actually like, oh, I get this. Like, okay. And then somebody put, I think, 1984's self-titled album, Dead Can Dance, on, and I was like, if I'd heard this before Joy Division, that's an entirely different 16-year-old Dirk. I love the early stuff, and now the later stuff has grown on me because I heard so much of it. I put Into the Labyrinth on before we recorded, and I was like, I know every word to this. I know every tribal drum section, like not how to play it, but I just like know it's going to happen. And
Right.
So they're such an interesting band, and I saw them in 92 or 3 when it was very much not my thing. But then I also saw Cocteau Twins, and they were later on in their career, and I was like, this isn't Blood Bitch. Like, what is the? Where's the stuff I want to hear? But later on, I appreciate all those experiences and seeing these bands. One of the main reasons we're talking about Moonchild is because of Dead Can Dance. We also have in the film Enrique Saldana, who plays David. This is his only credit. Young David only did this movie, and that was it, which is weird because he has a really stark appearance. I think
Yeah.
it really works for the movie. And then last but not least, Lucia Bose plays the director. She was in Lady Without Carmelitas. It autocorrected to Carmelitas. I have no idea what that word is. She was in Death of a Cyclist and Chronicle of the Death Foretold. So let's press play on Moonchild.
Aún no existía nada, y su corazón ya se había abierto para recibir el único rayo de la luna y caer después en el regazo de la madre. Y entonces, como ahora, en el continente oscuro, los hombres de piel negra esperaban la llegada.
We get voiceover and we learn that pale children have the power and David is the Moonchild. We learn this during intense overlapping images that'll either win you over or make you press stop on Moonchild. For me, I love this stuff. I was like, yes, please.
Yeah, I wrote that it was a cool, witchy intro
Yeah.
to what we're going to get.
That's true.
Oh, yes. I knew instantly why you asked me
Yeah, right.
to be on this. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
it's
this
either-
makes so much sense.
It's either a lot for somebody or you're like, oh, this is comfy. I'm used to this.
Yes.
David runs out of the orphanage and we see the moon and he tenses up and then we see ashes blowing towards him as if he's set the entire orphanage on fire. And then our title card. And I just wrote, I fucking love this shit. This is like such my jam. Like, oh my gosh. And at this point, we have to take our first soundtrack break where we're each going to list off one song that we're contributing to the soundtrack. So we're at the start, doesn't have to reflect that in your list. Sarah, what was the first song you chose?
The first song I chose was by the Virgin Prunes from the album The Moon Looked Down and Laughed, song I Am God. And I went through a whole theme of just choosing moon songs.
Mm-hmm.
That's my first one.
Very good.
Thank you.
Carmelita, what's yours?
Oh, goodness. Am I going to do this? Yeah, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm sorry. I'm including a Dead Can Dance song.
Yes. Somebody had to
Just
do
one, because I too was waiting for those beautiful vocals.
Uh-huh.
Same.
So I'm going with Indoctrination, A Design for Living from the album Spleen and Ideal, 1985.
In times of great vexation, when one must choose between what's right and wrong.
The second album. Love it. So good. Those early albums, when I started digging through those, I was like, it was years later after knowing what Dead Can Dance was. I just felt like such an idiot where I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Excellent pick. My first track is Wolfsheim, Childhood Cruel off their Pop Killer album.
Smoking up a cigarette, coughing and getting sick, making an experience, childhood cruel. Wicked father's touch, son, you.
Being that it's a film that deals a lot with, this childhood point of view and the horrors of growing up and everything, such my thing. I get it, people. There's a theme here in my life. But I was skipping through Wolfsheim tracks just being like, there's got to be something. And then I heard Childhood Cruel, and I was like, this basically just sums it up. This kicks it off really nicely for me. Next, we see David drawing the orphanage. We see a teacher find some of David's drawings, and a car approaches. Dave is called into an office, and a woman, Victoria, stands at a window. She isn't stoked on his drawings. He stares at a rattling window and then opens it with his mind.
So cool.
Moonchild shit.
Yeah, he has the power of the moon in those eyes.
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
And he's using it to open windows.
Yes,
I mean, what else is he gonna do?
and doors. He's got to start somewhere, I guess.
Yeah.
So he opens a door, and Victoria adopts him. There's a groundskeeper lady who tells David about being a moonchild and how to get to her house if he needs to, because he's, being adopted.
Es el hijo de la luna. Y ellos le están esperando. Guárdalo siempre contigo.
Te prometo que iré. ¿África?
No. Solo recuerda. Aquí está dibujado cómo llegar a mi casa. Por si te ocurre algo.
We next see David arrive at his new home. It's a place that houses and studies people with mind powers. And there is a one-shot in here where I paused it and rewound it and had Sarah watch it again because it is so rad. The camera follows David upstairs and then like 4 different positions as he moves around. He crosses the eye line of the camera but doesn't look at it. It's so rad and subtle, like you could completely miss it. But I was just like, I just realized like, oh, we're in one fluid movement. And the cinematography in this movie is so lovely. I could bask in everything that happens at this weird place where they're studying mind powers.
Well, to me, it seems like a cult.
Go on.
So all the women are like dressed the same and they all have the same haircut, which also happens to be my haircut. So I could live there and work there for sure.
Yep.
But they are, into studying these psychic powers, but it's to do something, weird.
Mostly
it gets weird
roll
and
sticks.
religious, culty. And so, I mean, to me, it seems like this scientific center, but that's how a lot of like cults start or are. So it was like, immediately I just got these kind of culty vibes.
There's
Yeah.
like this whole parapsychological, occultist. It's got that late 19th century, early 20th century, like
Mhm.
someone's going to do a seance and they're going to practice alchemy vibe about it.
Yeah.
Like a scientific approach to esoteric things, which I love that shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it so much.
I think it's such a great intermingling of like the director was fascinated with science fiction at the time, but you can tell he's not willing to like just write some nerdy science fiction thing. So it's this mixture with the occult, and I just think that it's just enough of each thing to be like kind of its own thing, and it's not super heavy-handed. There's no like real like religious iconography throughout the film, which was daring. It's probably hard to shoot in those old buildings and not see a bunch of crosses and stuff. So it's interesting, and all the shapes, the repetition of the moon cutouts, and I don't know. He's doing his own thing. And Victoria says one of my favorite lines in the whole film. She says, "Maybe you've always felt different, but we were all a bit strange."
Quizás has vivido estos años asustado porque te creías diferente. No lo sé. De todas maneras, todos tenemos aquí algo raro.
And I was like, well said, Victoria. We are all a bit strange. Maybe some more than others. But anyway.
Some more than others.
Yeah. We next see kids moving things with their minds and breaking glasses and things. And then David eats some dinner in another shot that I absolutely love because two people walk by with a giant picture of the moon and he follows it as it goes through the hallway appearing in door frames.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, oh my God, this is just my favorite thing I've seen in a long time. He sneaks in and finds a book of bios of people, and then he hides under the stage. And now we have the setup for a presentation taking place with the older people. We see Lisa Gerrard for the first time. She falls off a pew, and while getting stuff that she dropped, she sees him under the stage. And this begins this connection between these two.
Evidentemente, solo dos de ustedes, un hombre y una mujer, pueden darnos el acceso a ese ser.
We find out that they're creating a being with their minds. They're going to make a moon child. And yes, I know it's weird, people. If you're listening to this thinking that sounds strange, it's not lost on me. I just was willing to go with the idea we're making mind moon children.
This is where things get weird and culty, like I was talking about.
Yes.
David goes outside and he's staring up at the moon, and Victoria catches him, and then he hugs her in this moment where you think, oh, maybe they're going to like warm up to each other in some way. But they do, but it's in a very obtuse, strange relationship these two have. And I like how they keep it sort of off. David then sneaks out on the roof to bathe in the moonlight and draw a chalk circle. He stands inside it and calls for the power of the moon, and he says, I want to be your child. To the moon. No notes.
No. He's ready.
Well, I mean, there's this whole cool thing, okay? I always have to read too much into things, and I love symbolism.
Yes.
So the moon has, across lots of cultures and traditions and religions, been a symbol of fertility, femininity, the subconscious, a lot of goddesses that are moon goddesses. And our poor little David is looking for a mother.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be Victoria? Is it going to be Georgina, Lisa Gerrard's character? There's this whole moon thing and mothers, and it's like a thing.
Yes. Well said. Another reason why I wanted you here, Carmelita. He next explores the dark and descends a fireplace chimney, which he's just like willy-nilly, just like, I'll just go down this chimney. And he hears the two higher-ups discussing their plans, and they have foul plans for Georgina. He falls inside, steals a bottle of booze, and then reads Georgina's file. He believes she is the moon child mother. Everyone following along? Okay, perfect. The next night, there are fireworks. David eats corn and then bumps into a man, Edgar, who is with Georgina. He goes to get a drink, and David heads to Georgina and says, I've got actual alcohol. And she's like, yes, I'll meet you in the wash house. And I was like, this is brilliant storytelling. Georgina then chugs the booze, and David tells her that she is the mother of the moon child.
And that's some serious chugging. Like that's like some crazy alcoholic shit.
Yeah. I mean, they said that in her file, they're like, she's a crazy alcoholic. And then you see her drink and you're
And
like,
then they're
whoa.
like, let us show you.
Yeah. Yeah. Lisa's like, I got this, no problem.
Well, I love that they mentioned that she and Edgar are genetically perfect to create this moonchild. But then they go on to list all of the things about these people that one could say are false or, that society would say is like, oh, that's not such a good thing. But there's like this whole weird eugenics thing and they're perfect biologically, but they're very flawed people.
Yes.
I guess you could say.
Yeah. I hate, even the moon has craters. I've always said it.
Hey, that was good.
Oh, okay. The next day, David sees Georgina with Edgar again, and he's not stoked about it, but he has a plan. So Georgina waits in the washroom. She's laying down, and he whispers to her womb. And this is the part where I was like, uh-oh, this is my new favorite movie. Is it going to get really gross? Because I was like, I don't know about this womb whispering. But she's fine with it. David tells her that they're going to kill all the psychics, and he says she must make the moonchild. So she says, I'll be in the observatory during the next full moon. And she is. And she's given us a full moon. She's completely nude.
She is the full moon.
She is the full moon. David's there watching, but you do see Lisa Gerrard completely nude in her one starring role. It's pretty amazing.
It is. And she's strapped down, but it's just one strap kind of across the top of her chest.
Mm-hmm.
It seems more like a decoration, really.
It really does.
Right. It's not going to hold much.
Like, she's like, I'm not going to be completely nude. And they're like, one strap across the shoulders. And she's like, that'll work. Yeah,
that'll work.
That's pretty good. I was going to go nipple tassels, but let's do one strap across the shoulders. Edgar arrives and is led in and disrobed. And she at one point, I think she chuckles at the size of his genitals, or she's just chuckling because he's naked. I'm not sure. But she looks over and has this little like, ha. And then he looks down like, oh, man. And it's like, and then I thought it's probably really cold in there. It's a lot of marble. I don't know. But
yes. It's the middle of the night. It's cold outside. They just opened the big moon screen hole.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, let's talk about the moon screen hole. So there's a giant moon screen hole.
It's the observatory.
Yeah, right. But what do you call the moon screen hole?
I didn't know the name for it, so I just chose that.
Yeah.
A moon roof?
Moon roof. There you
go. That's better.
So the giant circle in the roof opens up, and she's like bathed in the moonlight. And then Edgar and her make a moonchild?
Yep.
Okay, sure wait. We can't gloss over this. One of the greatest moments in this movie that I never thought would happen. I never thought I would hear Lisa Gerrard say, stick it in me.
Yeah.
Yep,
yeah. Isn't that crazy? With all the script in this movie, that's what happens?
Mm-hmm.
But it happens.
Yes.
Bathed in the moonlight. Yeah.
Yeah. She first says, kiss me, and he chooses really wild choices.
Yeah.
Like, he goes for a shoulder at first, and
weird chin open mouth.
It's not good.
Right. I mean, Edgar's never done this before.
Yeah.
He's a real
that's
mess.
Clear.
Yeah.
Edgar. And he doesn't have his glasses on, so maybe that's why he
right. He's like, where's your face? I don't know.
I don't know where your lips are.
Yeah. It's a lot. David watches, and suddenly the doctors rush in. She screams. And then it's just, I guess, sometime later, and she's pregnant. It's a really crazy end to the scene.
Well, I think it's like really quickly, though. She's pregnant. Like, it's advancing like a super pregnancy.
Yeah, they say that she's advancing super fast, but there's no sign of life, which I was like, these doctors sound questionable. But Edgar's irritated. Georgina is scared, and David's pretty chill about the whole thing. Edgar demands to leave. And the higher-ups say he can't. And then David overhears that Edgar's going to die anyway, which is a great time for us to take our second soundtrack break. So, second song on the soundtrack. Carmelita, what do you have?
So this is fun. I decided to look into Spanish post-punk and industrial and experimental music from the 80s.
Awesome.
So there's a couple of these. But the first one is Vírgenes Sangrantes, parentheses, en el Mataderos, by the band Derribos Arias. band from Madrid from the early 80s.
Oh my gosh.
And this song is from their EP, Branquillas Bajo el Agua from 1982.
Okay, wow. I almost chose that.
It's fun. It's kind of got like this band's got a post-punk kind of almost the Smiths vibe,
Whoa.
but then like a little poppier, and there's some electronics in there. I don't know. It's good.
I'm very excited about this.
It's fun.
Thank you for bringing that. Sarah, what's your next one?
I was telling you earlier that my playlist ended up being a lot like my old radio show.
Yes. We've never talked about that.
I was looking for moon themed songs specifically in my mind, and then I was like, oh, I think I've actually played like these same things all maybe at one time.
Mm-hmm.
But not on purpose. So, Carmelita, I had a radio show when I was in college called The Black Lodge, and Dirk would come with me sometimes to DJ, and if he didn't come, he would always listen to the show. So, so he's probably not surprised by any of my choices. But I actually DJ'd with records in the studio, which I was the only person on the radio show that did that. Everybody else, this was also pre like the way people do things
Pre
now.
MP3 files, yeah.
Yeah. So you either brought CDs or records or tapes. And so I brought records, and, I didn't have that many records. So my radio show was pretty similar every time. But the next choice that I chose was Alien Sex Fiend from the album All Our Yesterdays and the song Trip to the Moon.
Nice.
Yes.
That's good.
Continuing your moon theme.
Moon theme.
Love it.
I love it.
Mine is no surprise to listeners. It's a little band called Coil I've mentioned a few times on the podcast. They did soundtracks with Derek Jarman. They did Angelic Conversation, The Garden, Blue. But they did one soundtrack that wasn't Derek Jarman. It was for Clive Barker for his little-known film Hellraiser. And they did an entire thing for it, and the studios decided it was too dark for a Clive Barker movie called Hellraiser. So I have the vinyl, I have the CD, might have the cassette, but I'm going with just the theme Hellraiser from Coil from that 10-inch because it deserves to be on another soundtrack, and people need to know that they actually worked on something that would have been more commercial, but it never made it.
For all those listening but not able to see Dirk right now, he is definitely wearing a Coil t-shirt.
As you do.
I'm nothing if not consistent. That's what I say. Back in the film, David and the guy hatch a plan to get them out. David says, go to the old woman that he knew from the start of the film. And they say they're going to run away to Africa, which I was like, what? It's shocking. So David...
They say Africa.
Yeah, they say it very intense. So David rips a page from a book, and Victoria notices this. He asks how someone could be born twice because he sees himself as the Moonchild, which means he knows that who he is David, but also sees himself as this future moon being, which is fascinating. The duality of this is very interesting to me. So Edgar says they're going to sneak out tomorrow. And the next night they do. But Victoria has a strange connection to David that isn't really ever fleshed out, but she can like touch her forehead and then sense something about him, but not with clarity, because she still has to go to his room to find out that he's snuck out.
¿A dónde conduce esto?
A la azotea.
Vamos.
It's an interesting connection. They run along rooftops and rappel, and then Victoria finds David gone. So they rush up, but they only catch David as the other two have escaped. She's sent to persuade David, who's locked up in a padded cell, and this beautiful shot where it's just the side of the two of them in this white room. And I love like when things are dead center in the screen. Oh my gosh, it's so good. She says that she'll... Oh,
That's the nicest padded cell I've ever seen in a movie.
is.
Like it makes you want to go in there and bounce around like
Yeah.
a pillow
It
bouncy
looks
house.
fluffy.
Usually they're kind of like, I don't want to be in there.
It's usually
Yeah.
stains and stuff.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
gross. This one was very nice.
Yeah, that's true. Highly recommend. Let's Airbnb that.
Okay.
She says that she'll open the kitchen door tonight so that he can escape, and we're all, as an audience, instantly like, no, don't do it, David.
It's a
'cause
trap.
It's a trap. Victoria, no. David really quickly catches up with them at the old woman's house. Like, he had it memorized, I guess. He approaches the elderly lady, and then she says they're inside, so go ahead. So he goes in, and then he's followed. They report back and say, kill everyone but the pregnant lady.
Pues acabemos de una vez. Póngame más. Esa mujer tiene que parir aquí. ¿Entendido?
Sí. ¿Y ellos? ¿Y la anciana?
Es necesario que mueran. Los tres. Y de una manera limpia.
And I was like, oh no, that's not good. And they do. They show up, they kill the old woman, they dart her, and then Edgar runs outside and they kill Edgar. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is happening so fast. Georgina grabs a shotgun and David helps her find shells for it. They hide under a table. The two evil men enter the room, and then David pulls the trigger and kills two men with a shotgun.
With one bullet.
It's crazy.
This one of my favorite things about this movie is this whole theme of like destiny
Yeah.
and versus self-determination. And David grew up, the old woman telling him the story that he is the Moonchild, and he is so convinced he's the Moonchild, and he wants to have purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Damn it, he is the Moonchild,
Yeah.
and the Moonchild is going to happen. And so, you know, when the El Centro talks about creating a Moonchild, then he's like, okay, pivot, I guess I'm being born again through this child, but I'm still the Moonchild. He's like, he keeps finding
Mhm.
ways to like, no, I'm still the Moonchild though, and we're gonna do this. And so yeah, people getting murdered, he's like, okay, well, I guess I have to kill people now because I'm the Moonchild. We're doing this.
Yeah, and there's no lingering moment of Edgar once he's killed. They're all just like, moving on. Like,
Bye,
we're going to
Edgar.
Africa. Okay. Wow, cold. So they escape. And next we see them all dolled up in crazy outfits, and they're going on a boat. They're going to go to Africa. I don't know who the costume designer was for this movie, but this is where they really shine. It's
In their cruise outfit.
It's so crazy. It's just gorgeous looking. They look out a window and see a strange man smoking a cigarette, and they're like, oh no, Like, we're going to get caught. That guy's totally evil. It's probably his mustache that gives him that vibe. But so they hide, and the guy kind of blocks their path of getting on board. And then David thinks we'll sneak on board in these giant nets that they're using to lift up crates. And then they're on board. So they did. They're stowaways. They stowed away like a Looney Tunes cartoon.
It worked.
It totally works. And that brings us to our third soundtrack stop in the plot here. So let's talk about the third track we're all putting on our imaginary soundtrack for Moonchild. Sarah, what did you pick?
I picked Gene Loves Jezebel from the album Discover song, Brand New Moon.
Brand New Moon? Nice.
Lovely. I'm so pleased.
That's a band that I honestly never listened to just because of their name. I just thought, oh, this is like a cheesy hair metal thing or something until I met Sarah. And then you played Always a Flame, maybe? And I was like, probably from your radio show. And I was like, oh, this rules. And then I got super hard into Gene Loves Jezebel.
They're kind of an enigma.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like contrasting elements.
Mm-hmm.
And like the perception of Gene Loves Jezebel, but then the experience of Gene Loves Jezebel.
Yeah.
The cult is similar.
Yes, that's true. They got Moonchild
Similar.
vibes.
Yes.
Perfect. Carmelita, what did you pick for your third?
I'm going to go with Tuxedo Moon,
Oh,
the band.
Yeah.
Their song, I'm going to butcher this because it's French, I think. Courante Moroccan, which translates to Moroccan current. It's from their album Sweet and Sous Soul from 1982. It's like this whole Moroccan flavor instrumental in the style of Tuxedo Moon, which is like experimental. It's kind of jazzy, but then it's like synth. I don't know. It's a good time.
I love it. Excellent. My third pick is an artist from Portland. Their name's Daniel Mensch, and the song is Hollow Mesmer off their album Scattered Remains. Super ambient loops of sound, just definitely fills a room. Daniel Mensch is an artist that like I was very into with his albums and stuff. Is the store Ozone I've mentioned here in Portland had an experimental music section, and next to Coil and things, there's this guy, and he was from Oregon, and he was doing these like albums with like 22-minute compositions and stuff where you're just like, what? This can be music too? Like this can be an album? And so we recently, our friends Weird War did a 4-day event called the Dungeons Alive 2, and he was there. And one of the things we went to was Enchanted Forest, this mystical place here in Oregon.
I love when you post pictures of it on Twitter.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really
so
makes me so
fun.
happy.
so good. So they did a show there, and it was dungeon synth bands. So it was Fog Weaver, Fan Walker, and Katal Hayuk, Huyuk, performing on this little stage. But at one point I look over and Sarah's standing there, and right next to her is like noise legend Daniel Mensch just chilling. And I was like, that's so crazy. So I did like a creepy video because I could show her who she's standing next to. Anyway, so it just became this joke of, am I going to go up and touch him for 4 days? Because I was like, there he is over there. There he is over there. And
Derek was so excited, and I kept being like, just go talk to him, you weirdo. Quit taking pictures of me standing next to him and just go introduce yourself. Like, he's going to be stoked.
yeah. And so then one of the things that they did was a showing of Riddle of Fire on 35 millimeter and Frog Dreaming with the director Brian Trenchard Smith. And in between the films and before, they have their little dungeon makers fair. And so they have, heavy metal people with their stuff. They have a zine person. They have this, they have that. Well, Daniel Mensch was there with his photography because he photographs for his own album covers. So like skulls and landscapes and stuff. So I turned around and then he was just standing there with all his pictures. And so I was like, well, then I'm just going to bother him now because this is what you do, I guess. So
Right.
I talked to him, and it was awesome.
Good job, Derek.
Yeah, I actually narrated the whole thing for myself, where I was like, I'm gonna walk away now because I'm gonna keep asking you questions about stuff. And he was like, oh no, that's okay. He's super kind, but I fangirled out on a noise musician.
I love it. I bet that you made his day.
I don't know. It's hard to tell, two weird people, but it was nice. It was really nice. And he said, thanks for coming up. So back in the film, the evils are still tracking these two. And the boy David's scared, is bathing in a river. And there's another boy there. And they touch chests and tongues.
As you do.
Anyway, David and Georgina are tired and weird, but they reach their destination. They meet some more people, and there's a grandfather who doesn't want to be called grandfather. This section of the film is bizarre in a movie called Moonchild. I just felt like we were meeting these characters and things. I wasn't sure who people were, where this was going. Georgina's really not well, and so you couldn't really. She's so bizarre in the beginning of the film, and then she just gets more and more sickly. We see less of her. I wrote, okay, sorry. Next, it's night, and the boy takes David to a private Dead Can Dance show, is what I wrote, by the river. This lady holds up a moon and like rubs it around on David, and then they slide it into the water, and I love this entire section. I was like, whatever this cult is, like, yeah, let's do this.
I would hang out with this lady.
Yeah, for sure.
We would just do weird moon related things at the well.
Yeah. She would have like the incense that you've never heard of, where you're like, this isn't Nag Champa. Like, what is this one? And she's like, this is the Imperial Dark Lord's Forest. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's cool. So I got
smells great.
Yeah, is there tarragon in this? What is the sandalwood? We next see Moon Mom's scaly head. I don't know what's happening in the sequence, but there was like I don't even know, like an image really quickly of like part fish head or something. It's very bizarre. David sneaks into the grandfather's room and hides, sees the man stab his own wrist and then wax seal it. It's so bizarre. His son is the father of the Moonchild, and David uses his mind to make the man die. I was like, whoa.
Okay, well, first of all,
yes,
that actor Gunter Meisner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's always a villain. He's either a Nazi or he's Slugworth in Willy Wonka.
Oh,
always a bad guy.
yeah.
The minute you see that guy, you're like, okay, that's a bad man. But he's got a tattoo of that geometric symbol
Mm-hmm.
that the Institute uses, the cult people.
Okay, that's what it is.
So David sees that and he's like, no. He's got to go.
Yeah.
He's going to sell us out.
And he does. That man is gone. So he's like, we got to get out of here. We're going to get caught. So off they set via camel and mule through the desert. But evil Victoria is following via plane. I did not foresee this having aerial acrobatics, but there you go. Meanwhile, Gabrielle is going into labor. And David's like, yeah, cool. I'm going to be born again. Gabrielle is not doing well. David keeps watch. And suddenly the evil plane approaches. Victoria says, you're not the Moonchild, and Georgina isn't your mom. You didn't kill Georgina. We just want the baby. And David's like, I am the Moonchild. And then she asks where the baby is. And that's where it gets a little dark.
Okay, yeah. Can we talk about this?
We gotta have to.
Because David whispers
Yes.
in Victoria's ear where the baby is.
Yeah.
We don't hear it, but he's making a rip something apart motion with his hands.
Yeah. I don't like it.
What?
I don't like it at all.
Where'd that baby go, you guys?
Where did the baby go?
I think he ripped
What
open
happened to the baby?
I mean, I was like, did Georgina die and he had to like rip the baby out of Georgina? Or did he rip apart a baby?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what
Regardless, I was
happened.
like, this is dark for even, and I enjoy dark stuff. Whew. Just take a moment for that, everyone. So she says she'll go back to the center, but you two boys go off and be moon kids. And so David and the boy who likes to touch his tongue, they go off to find a village, and while they look up at the stars, Victoria explodes in the sky.
Why'd
She shoots her gas tank.
Why'd she do that?
To become, see, okay.
Here we go.
She drank the Kool-Aid.
Yep.
David, I don't know if he convinced her or if she's just decided it's in my best interest just to help this kid make his Moonchild dreams come true, to fulfill his Moonchild destiny.
Mm-hmm.
Because he tells her he's waiting for the fire in the sky is the signal that will motion to the dark-skinned peoples that their savior has arrived. That's what he's waiting for.
Mm-hmm.
So she becomes the fire in the sky
Mm-hmm.
by blowing up her plane midair.
And then he presents himself as the Moonchild to the tribe.
Yeah.
Dark.
wild. It's wild. It's so
the
wild.
only person that ever showed him kindness explodes in the sky above him.
She could have been his mom, you know?
That's true. I
They
mean,
had a-
she
they
did
had a
legally
connection.
adopt him.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the movie. Whew. Ah. Moon Children movies. Always the same. Always a riot. Which is our final soundtrack break. Carmelita, what's your final song for the soundtrack?
Oh man, I'm leaving some good ones on the cutting room floor. I'm gonna go with a Spanish industrial band from the early 80s.
I love it.
Esplendor Geométrico, Geometric Splendor. The song Chic from their album Mecano Turbo from 1988. Another kind of Moroccan.
Fantastic. I have not heard that at this very moment, but we will be hearing it in the episode. So I look forward to that. Sarah, what's your final pick?
My final pick is Love and Rockets from album Express song Holiday on the Moon.
Well played. Consistent
Make
Moon theme.
my heart so happy.
Yeah. We had the pleasure of seeing them, 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they still got it. Love and
They do.
Rockets.
Still fun.
I saw them on the tour. It was probably 2 years ago now.
Yeah. The one thing I noticed in that show was their songs are very long.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
I
gotta rock
like
out,
that.
man.
They just like let it sprawl,
Mhm.
unlike any other
Uh-huh.
band, I think. And so I'd be watching something, I'm like, you get kind of into the groove of it, and you're like, wow, this is like 10 minutes. Oh my gosh. Like,
That's perfect for dancing.
yep. I get it.
You don't have to like change.
No, you get in a groove and
Gears?
just keep going.
You get to like really feel the music, really, you know?
Yep. I get it. Excellent pick. My final pick is a group called Third Eye Foundation. It's this guy, Matt Elliott. And the song is called Half a Tiger. I chose it because it's like has this kind of like lilty string warp stuff in the back, like someone putting their hand on a record while it's playing, and then it's got some dubby kind of percussion, and I just felt like it kind of fit the overall vibe. Doesn't have Moon in the title, but I just thought it's a nice selection for something that should be on a soundtrack. Okay, final thoughts on Moonchild. Sarah, what did you think?
I mean, I thought it was very fun. I do think our soundtrack would make it easier for me to stay awake because I watched it very late last night and I was so tired.
You had to finish a big project. You had a big day.
I was like wrapping a pallet in our driveway at 11 p.m. at night and then was like, okay, Dirk, I'm ready to watch a movie.
Mhm. And I'm
I
like,
feel
cool.
like-
This one's subtitled and
Yeah.
has a Dead Can
I
Dance
was
soundtrack.
like, dude, I'm
It's 2
barely
hours.
hanging on. So I feel like our soundtrack would be a little more upbeat.
Yeah.
And I could have really I would have probably been up dancing,
Yep.
you know?
Mhm.
So that's my only really thoughts on that. One of my favorite parts about the movie was all of like the shadow play that happened. We
Yeah.
didn't really talk about that, but there's so many shots that could just be like a beautiful, piece of art
Mhm.
because there's all this like shadow work that happens where like especially when the people are wearing different white outfits and you see the shadows casted on their clothing or like
Mhm.
across the big balconies in the mansion. That was one of my favorite things to do because when I take photos, I always love to do like shadow play. So I was like really digging that. Definitely my least favorite part of the movie, which we didn't talk about this scene, was, after they are making the moon baby in the observatory, then all these doctors come in and do all this weird stuff with like sharp knives and,
Yeah.
like
I
whatever.
mentioned it, but I breezed right past it.
I'm like,
yeah.
what are they doing? She's just like
Gynecological tool
horrified.
horror.
Yeah, it was totally like one of those moments where you're like, dude, that's messed up.
Yeah.
Like, what are they even doing? And I don't know what they were doing, but I hated that part.
Yep.
It made me just like squeeze my legs together really
Mhm.
hard. Yeah, but I dug the movie.
Okay.
It was highs and lows for me.
Yeah.
I got a little lost once they went to Africa.
Yeah.
I was like, they really could have just stayed where they were because it dragged on for
It's
a while.
2 hours. It's a 2-hour movie.
And I couldn't really figure out why
Mhm.
in some of those parts. But then I think they brought it back around and then things got real weird and messed up. And I was like, okay, I'm back on board.
Perfect. Carmelita, what did you think of Moonchild?
I really enjoyed this. This is one of those like experience movies,
Yeah.
vibe movies. There's some kind of crazy like plot points, but there's a lot of ambiguity in things.
Mhm.
So you can either just take in all the visual stimulus and the great performances. We forgot to mention that Jack Burkett is in this. He plays the guy in the wheelchair.
yeah, yeah.
He is a Derek Jarman alumnus.
Yes.
I always love to see him, and just a great cast, beautiful settings. I love the themes that they're playing with here of fate, prophecy. I love stories about prophecies because it's always like, how is this prophecy going to go wrong?
Yeah.
What are people willing to do to make a prophecy happen?
Mhm.
When really, if it was meant to happen, shouldn't it just happen? Do you really have to force it? All those kind of questions
Yeah.
that this brings up. I love all that kind of stuff. The white savior child to the dark-skinned people's part of the story
Yeah.
was a little like, ooh. But it's the way that it's presented is kind of like, I don't think it's saying that's a good thing necessarily.
Yeah.
They're just saying that this is what David believes. And that was kind of interesting coming from a Spanish director.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you look at the history of the Americas and the story of the conquest of the Aztecs, this idea of, the white godlike figure descending on these people and, whatever. So it was interesting. There was a lot. This got me thinking.
Mm-hmm.
It got me interested in learning more. It got me interested in watching more. I went on a binge of watching Agustín Villarronga movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I will take this opportunity to recommend to anyone who hasn't seen it 99.9. The movie he did in the 90s. I forget what year, but that one's got some witchy folk horror kind of thriller elements.
Yeah.
Ooh, maybe it'll fit into our October calendar.
I think it's going to.
Check it out. I really enjoyed that. I also watched In a Glass Cage.
Yep.
Which that was heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. He's
Great movie. Very heavy.
Yeah. Not a director that shies away from heavy subject matters, which I always
appreciate it.
Yeah. Also continually works with like the same teams of people and has same actors kind of come back. I think Edgar was in 3 of his films. Yeah, I really love Moonchild. It's like Sarah said, everything that happens in the Institute, all of that is like, I mean, it just has that feeling of when I first discovered quote unquote art house movies, or cinema that was from another place that in the States we just called foreign films. And you think, and they just like, there's something about it. The Dead Can Dance soundtrack part of it just makes me feel like so cozy in the film. The fact that things are like obtuse and strange, I absolutely love all of that. Just the cinematography in it, all the camera work. I think the acting is all really fascinating, and all the characters just have those faces that the camera just can linger on, and you as an audience, for however long the shot is, are engaged. Yeah, I think Moonchild from 1988 is really good. I think more people should give it a look and see. I wish it had more. There's not really a commentary or anything. There's a brief interview on the Blu-ray with the director, which is very interesting. But there's not. I would love a commentary, some explanation, some backstory, because it's got to be what's Lisa like on set. Because you can find a few interviews with her, but not like this. I mean, talk about someone that like gave it all to this one starring role.
Her performance is so fun.
And why? Like, was he a fan? Like, how did this come about? The whole history of that.
The director still alive?
He died last year, I believe.
I was going to say, reach out, man.
Yeah, which is probably why the Blu-ray it probably has the only interview he gave about it, but because the rest of it's trailers. So that's my thoughts on Moonchild from 1988. It's my favorite movie called Moonchild.
There are many, so
yes,
this is
so many.
This is an important distinction.
Yeah, if you're watching a Moonchild movie and nobody maybe rips a baby in half, then don't watch that one. That's what I'm saying. Sarah, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Spicy Marshall, and you can message me through our website, Marshall's Hot Sauce.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also hear me on my podcast, The Meaningful Marketplace.
There you go. Perfect. Carmelita, where can people find you?
So I'm on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
And on Letterboxd, and kind of on Blue Sky. Same handle for everything, at Carmelita Says.
There you go. Well, thanks again for coming here. Thanks for watching Moonchild and giving us all this wonderful insight.
No, thank you for bringing, again, you've done it again.
Yes.
You've brought an amazing movie into my life. A movie that in retrospect, I'm like, how did I not see this before? How was this not part of my life? This should have been part of my life.
Yeah.
Dirk, you're
So
so
thank
good
you.
at that. You're
Thanks.
so good at that. Always.
You're so good at this. And it's always a joy talking movies and music with you.
Yes.
I
Good.
love it.
It's like my favorite episodes is when we have an intersection of music and movies.
We get to have so much fun.
Yeah.
When you were just saying all the different episodes we did, I was like, oh, that's so fun. Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah.
Oh, So cool.
I know, Gypsy 83. Awesome. Well, I hate for it to end, but that's the end of the episode, everybody. As always, I'm Dirk Marshall, and this has been VH Us, the podcast where when it comes to celebrating rad films and even radder friends, we're not done yet.
This is